Good morning, everyone, and good evening. Welcome to our first Fintech Friday session of 2023. My name is Karil, and with us today, we have an amazing panel of experts for a great discussion. Before we start, just a reminder to keep your microphones on mute and to rename yourselves to include your name and your institution name so that we can identify you when you ask questions. According to the World Economic Forum, it will take 132 years to reach gender parity. But the gap we're focusing on today is the gender gap in fintech usage. Alliance research into fintechs and the female economy in 2021 showed that fintechs are leaving money on the table by not being gender intelligent. In fact, the gender gap in fintech usage is nearly 28%. That's 3 times greater than the gap in access to a formal account and represents a massive unserved and underserved market, which fintechs are uniquely positioned to support. The main reasons for this high gender gap are, first, many fintechs target young urban men, considering them the early adopters. As a result, their solutions speak to and reach more men than women. Second, there is a limited or lack of research-based understanding of various segments, behaviors, and their needs, in particular, women. And ignoring such nuances when designing the user experience causes women users to drop off across the different stages of the sales funnel. And lastly, from the investor side, there is a gender lens, either missing or simply it focuses on women's representation in company leadership from a D&I perspective. The sales funnel is the heart of the business model of fintechs. And our analysis found that increasing their female customer rates to levels equal to male customer conversion rates across the sales funnel, fintechs could see up to 70% increase in revenues. In this session, and just 1 week after International Women's Day, we are proud to host 3 amazing female founders to share the various gender-differentiated efforts they have undertaken to address the barriers women face at each phase of the sales funnel. I'd like to welcome my panel of experts, Sari Chahal, founder and CEO of Shiroz and Mahila Money, Halima Iqbal, founder and CEO of Oran, and Ifeoma Uddo, founder and CEO of Shicluded. If I can please ask you ladies to introduce yourselves and your companies in 30 seconds. Sari, let's start with you. Let me stop sharing my screen. There we go.
Hello, everyone. Wonderful to be here. Wonderful to be back with the Alliance, and I hope you're having a good year. I'm the founder of Shiroz and now Mahila Money. Think of us as ecosystems that connect women to the economic mainstream, help women contribute more to the GDP. With Shiroz, we build communities that serve employment, entrepreneurship, and learning outcomes for women. And with Mahila Money, we connect women to capital as a core product, productive capital, along with other financial products, including insurance and savings and wealth. Yeah, I've been working in this space for over a decade now, actually more than a decade. And it's definitely grown and evolved, and I'm based in India.
Thank you. Halima.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to share this panel with such strong founders and females in the space. My name is Halima Iqbal. I am the CEO and founder of Uran. Uran is Pakistan's first women-led and women-first financial technology company, where we provide access to capital for financial mobility for women in Pakistan. And super excited to have this conversation.
Great, thank you. And finally, Ifeoma. Yes, sorry, I wasn't hearing you at first.
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. And it's such an honor to be here and to learn from other women in different parts of the world. My name is Ifeoma Uddo. I run a finance company for women called Shicluded. Our mission is to provide economic prosperity through empowering and financing women entrepreneurs. So thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you for being with us, all three of you. Saidi, I want to start with you. So I shared just a minute ago the gap in fintech usage, and add to that the fact that women are hesitant to engage with fintechs they are not familiar with. So I'm curious to know, what was Shiro's secret to attracting millions of women users?
So I have to confess that what Shiro's ended up doing was digitizing a behavior that existed offline. I think we're a little bit beneficiary of, I think, a little bit of a cultural behavior. So one of the things that I grew up in small town India, and one thing I always noticed was women always hung out in groups together in the offline world. And I think that also became actually a business later with microfinance, so self-help groups, the P2 borrowing, lending, the cooperative financing movement. And I mean, as a as as a child growing up, these things were happening. And of course, when I grew up, and much later in life, I realized that this is a certain kind of behavior that's not common, let's say, to the Western world. Like you don't see this in America, you don't see this perhaps in Europe, but you do see it in parts of Asia, maybe parts of Africa. But India, it was a real thing, and it scaled. So when we were building Shiro's, unfortunately, not many women were online. Barely, the number of internet users was so small that we really couldn't go out and sort of use the digital methods. So we did the next best thing. We went offline, and we created networks offline, which later came online. So we're also a little bit of beneficiary of a market that's grown. When I started building this, there were maybe less than 10 million women online. Today, that number is 300 million plus. So we're clearly, and that's taken a decade, so you can say it happened quickly, but it also happened slowly. You can see both things happening. What we really did was we went and built relationships with women offline, and we said we're going to work on trust. So internet solves for virality, and we said, if we're going to do this, we're going to solve for trust. And obviously, we played the long game. It took us a decade to build it, but here we are.
Well, it goes to show you that, you really understood your target market. And we know that trust is an issue, and it's going to keep coming up in the conversation I'm going to have with all three of you. Halima, so when you were designing Oran, did you carry out any market research into understanding the key behaviors that women have with money? And did that influence the way you designed your fintech?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's important to understand a little bit of the journey that we had. I had just moved back from Canada to Pakistan after spending about a decade there, and had a really hard time opening a bank account as a woman. And that frustrated me enough to start researching as to what was happening in the market. And when we started researching, what we found out that people do not, or especially women, would not necessarily even want a bank account, because their first go-to thing would be a ROSCA, or a committee, as it's called, which is a group savings and a group credit product. And that behavior was prevalent from all socioeconomic classes, and rural and urban as well. So women across board that would be the primary mode of banking for them, which was fascinating enough for us to start understanding what their behavior was looking like. How do they interact with money in these circles, what kind of languages they are okay with, what kind of digital intervention they would be comfortable using with, and what role trust plays in these groups. Imagine like 41% of the population is partaking in these ROSCAs. There's a massive trust element that we have to figure out how to translate that from a digital intervention perspective. And very similarly to what I was saying, just partnering with people and women offline to understand their behavior, to understand why are they saving like this, what kind of religious sensitivity this product solves for, what kind of financial literacy they have, what kind of digital literacy they have, and how they have built their networks on the offline sector, to then be able to think about how does that translate on a digital element, right? So there was a lot of on-ground working with different kinds of women, whether it was a housewife to an entrepreneur to a mom with multiple kids, but like having a small business at home. So it was looking at different personas, and you very quickly start understanding a trend with women, because all of us require some sense of belonging, right? And that is part and parcel of why you would find women, especially in Asia or Africa, in community. That sense of belonging is so strong. And that's what we started understanding and translating that on an online behavior perspective.
Amazing, amazing. And so I'm taking notes. So between you and Sairi, what I've learned now is, one, we need to research and really understand your target market and their behavior, but also the use of the phygital component of both the physical and the digital to incorporate that sense of trust. And so these are things that, you know, even if you are a fully digital company, things to have in mind, especially when you understand your target market and the concerns that you need to overcome. Ifeoma, turning to you, what effective marketing campaigns and tactics has Shikluda put in place to attract female customers? You're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I've also been taking notes. Thank you so much. I'm going to use some of the ideas I got. So for us, I think that what struck me is that the way that you communicate to women is different. So if you tell a woman, come and take a loan, she will never come. If you tell her, come and get a laptop, we can help you get a laptop, and you can pay instrumentally, she understands it. If you tell her, come and get a breast pump, she will come. If you tell her, come and get a loan, she say, oh no, I'm scared. So we started learning that women like to be communicated to, as in women are the easiest buyers. They want their problem solved. They don't want to buy another tech. They don't want some other fancy stuff added to the so many tasks and responsibilities they already have. When I started Shikluda, the first thing I wanted to do was build a tech company. I finished the website, paid everything for the website, and I talked to women and I say, go online. And I'm like, like it was cricket sound. Then I said, this is not working. And you know what? I went to social media and I opened an Instagram page and I started chatting them in their DM. And I said, hey, are you currently selling out? And they said, yes. I said, what if I can help you sell more? And she's like, tell me about it. And they came and we talked to them and they got a loan. So we quickly started knowing that, you know, to be able to do that, we need to do it the other way. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah. And you know, that's very similar to a lot of what we've seen and what we've communicated with the incumbent sector, in that when you're communicating with women, what we've seen across the years is more benefit oriented and the value of what they're getting out of the product and the service that you're providing, and not the facts and the features of the product itself. They're much less focused on that, but rather the end value of what they're getting. And so really understanding that and translating that into your communication really does make a difference. So Sairi, coming back to you, would you say then Mahila Money was a natural sequel to what Shiro's was?
Absolutely. I think Shiro started with things that sort of connected you to the world of employment, entrepreneurship. You could learn skills, you could get a lot of support, you could find counseling. So we built a giant safe space. We built a lot of content. We built a lot of avenues to income, but we weren't directly putting money in hands of them. You know, we weren't sort of bringing in the capital. And of course, I guess it was a little bit of a function of the market we were in, and of course, how ready our market was. And of course, last couple of years, especially COVID-driven digital adoption, rise of fintech in India, rise of digital payments in India, kind of is all a pointer to what we're doing at Mahila Money. The other key statistic that's very relevant here. India's women's labor force participation hasn't grown. What that means is a lot more women are either not joining the workforce, which when I say workforce, I mean formal sector salary jobs, or they're dropping out. So that number is a little scary. But when we sort of look under the hood, we also saw that entrepreneurship has become a default setting for a lot of people who are not joining the workforce, but so they all have mobile phones, they are on the internet, data is very cheap, payments is pretty frictionless. And that's giving rise to a lot of women who are already sort of in our ecosystem and who are saying, hey, I want to start a business. Hey, I want to set up a fashion studio. Hey, I want to, teach what I know. I want to become an online teacher, an offline yoga instructor, or whatever they were setting up. So Mahila Money really came in to say, let's add capital to this mix. And capital, as we all know, is one of the biggest levers in any ecosystem. So we know the impact it has created in ecosystems like Silicon Valley. So today, a lot of Mahila Money focus is to say, how do we use the world of financial products to create more economic leverage for women at an individual level? So when you and I talk about it, we obviously have an academic interest and a professional interest in it. But when a user looks at it to say, hey, like, what's going to happen at the end of the month for me? Am I going to, will I have more assets, or will I have more income, or will I have a path to more income? And that's really the road we're taking with Mahila Money. And obviously, I think we're also a beneficiary of a large number of women being entrepreneurial at this point in time. So even with very rough estimates, there are perhaps 60, 70 million women who you can call entrepreneurs of some shape and size, whether they're solopreneurs or they run a small setup, or they're actually a properly registered organization. And so for us, it was a natural progression into this segment. But having said that, I think the treatment of Mahila Money is very different from the treatment of Heroes. One is content, the other is capital, and of course there are aspects of regulation that kick in when you start dealing with financial products. So and we are obviously learning that as we build this as well.
Amazing. Halima, I wanna turn to you and maybe reopen the trust factor discussion, because I think one of the biggest barriers that we have into the usage gap that we see for women is that trust. So research suggests that women are more concerned with cybersecurity and digital trust and privacy, and they check the fine prints a lot more than men do. And so what did Oran do to make sure that sense of trust is there to enroll and engage women in the services you provide?
Yeah, there's also in Pakistan, there's also an element of not just cybersecurity and data policies, but also a religious element. Women are a lot more religiously sensitive when it comes to financial transactions. So for us, it was very important to go build a community first and use that community to do educational awareness around finance before we went on to push for the product. And that element and even around the community was not just direct pushes of the product, it was more around the benefits of being on a digital platform versus doing it offline, or using informal means versus using something slightly more regulated, slightly more sophisticated, and what are the benefits of it. And that was a big challenge, because it is also breaking super complex financial terms into more day-to-day usage, but also looking at finance from a lifestyle perspective. The needs of women are not any different than it would be for any other gender, but it's about how she uses finance, right? She's very communal with her financial needs as well. So she'll put her family first before she would put herself. So building around that, building educational content around that, and then allowing people to share their financial stories. And that helped build that trust onto the platform, onto the community as well. And what's interesting that anytime there's ups and downs in terms of like if there's a fraud or finance scam that has happened outside of the platform, these women are the ones who are going and championing. While they might have taken a longer time to convert, and there was a lot of nurturing to convert them into a digital financial product user. But there's a longer lifetime value attached to them, right? Because they become champions of the product. And that's the kind of behavior that we keep on seeing. So instead of us pushing for product directly, what we push for more is on the story side, because she likes that story and she wants to be addressed more from a story perspective. That also helps her build that continuous trust onto the platform.
Sorry. Yes, completely. So basically you helped create and build that sense of community that created and that trust. Ifeoma, I actually want to hear from you as well. So what did it take from your end for Shiklude to build and the interest and the motivation overcoming that trust factor to embark, on a journey with Shiklude?
I feel that I was transparent with them. I said I'm also afraid, so I'm not some sort of like, I fell from somewhere. I'm also afraid. I have similar experiences with you, and I was honest. And I think that as soon as women saw that, they could connect and relate with that. Then also I sort of like, again, for me, it was also a learning process for me, because I'd always been in corporate and it was always, formal, white, black suits, just say hi. And immediately I noticed that they wanted a hug. They wanted smiles. They wanted somebody warm. They wanted you to say, hey, happy birthday. Something is happening with you. And I learned that quickly to just say, how do I connect more with women and be there and be present? So I think that also helped them build the trust. Then something that also worked, because as we began to expand, I actually also started forgetting names and everything, was that I tried to make sure the culture was within the team. I tried to tell the team that this is an opportunity. You will never get so many jobs where you can actually change somebody's mindset or somebody's life or just make somebody feel better. So I tried to tell them to also pass that, so that there's more of me. And over time, I tried to say, I see you in agriculture. I see you in agriculture. I think you guys should be friends. And, I try to make it light and fun. Some of them was a click. Some of them was a no click. But usually I'm excited when I see two people that we introduce and they're like doing something on social media. I'm like, yeah, we did that. So yeah, so pass it on from me to my team and to the community. That's what we've been trying to do.
Amazing. So honesty, transparency, being human, putting that human element in the digital space. So we see that there's a lot of those offline components that are still very critical, because it's always about that building the relationship with women clients. So Sairi, Halima touched upon a couple of things when she was talking about trust, and she mentioned language and all of these things, and we know that this is critical. We know that registration to digital services usually is a daunting long form to be filled. Language is technical, documentation requirements are complex, and these are all things that push, well, first, they don't make the relationship and the process very seamless. And then this is something that would create leakage for women more than for men, who are more concerned. Men seem to just, skip and press next. And so then how do you ensure that you have a seamless registration and onboarding process with Mahila Money?
So we have two major approaches to this. So one is assume that the person is a digital native, or they're familiar enough with a digital only journey. And I think there, a lot of our job is to think like a consumer internet company. So we need to put away our fintech hat and say, hey, like, which are the easiest buttons? So for example, we know toggle buttons are easier. You don't have to type pre-filled text. So there's a lot of what you can call learnings from building, great apps in UX and small things, video first, big fonts, no small text. So a lot of these things add up in terms of designing their journey, but also making sure help is at hand much easily. I know that a lot of traditional fintech, or especially if I may say bro fintech world, takes pride in the fact that, hey, there's no human being at the end of this app and everything is automated and there's too much AI going on. We think that if a user who's new to some of these products, or even if she's going through this journey, she should be able to get help at a pretty quick turnaround time. So we do sort of optimize for that. The second journey is designed actually in partnership with partners, which means that, hey, I'm a skilling school, I'm an incubator, I'm a manufacturer, or I'm somebody who already works with women in some capacity. So in some ways, we piggyback on partners' trust as well to say, hey, look, you don't know us that well, but you know this school very well, you know this community very well. So we work with other communities, other partners who work with women already, driving school for women, and we've got, at any point in time, there are about 100 partners that we are live with, who are, you can call them, again, it's a hybrid approach. The woman typically comes through a two-layer trust system, and that makes it easier for her to not have to worry that, hey, something wrong is going to happen to me, or I don't know where am I, or what is this app all about. And of course, the other thing we do liberally is use of video, because video over calling and text. So we all know a phone call in the financial services space is always hard, even for us when we call our call center for credit card details or a bank account queries. It's always not our best experience. And when you make it for a user who's new or who speaks a different language, whose first language is not English, it gets doubly hard for them. So making sure some of our experience of interfacing with our user is video first and quick is really one of the easiest hacks we have figured, that it's worth investing in it. We rather take all the money from marketing and invest it in this experience, and I think it pays back, pretty quickly.
Yeah, good to know that. So it does pay back. Halima, I want to discuss a topic with you, but then I think eventually I will ask all three of you, because you're all within the financial services sector. So the biggest funnel blockage we think is at the approval phase, and it's because it's biased credit algorithms. And most of the time we know that this results in rejecting more women than men. So how have you at Oran addressed this issue, and what has been the result to date?
So we look at, so our product is both credit and savings. And what over time we have changed our algorithm is that if, for example, if somebody is not approved on the credit side, we will still push them into the saving side of the business and allow them to save and learn from their behavior to then be able to provide them with some form and shape of credit. But we also have built, we're not completely relying on digital decision making as of today, because there's also always an element, especially for women, to have some form and shape of human touch, what Sairi was talking about, right? So we have that element that allows us to not make sure that we're not making any kind of biased decisions on that front. But if our algo does not accept something, and even if our checks don't go through for that person, we're not rejecting them completely. We're pushing them for less risky positions and allowing them to build that history with us to then be able to provide them with that credit. And that has worked really, really well in our market right now.
Okay, perfect. Ifeoma, before I move on to another phase within the funnel, I actually want to address this question to you as well regarding credit algorithms and approval processes for loans. So how does that work at Chicluded to make sure that women get a good and fair chance to get credit?
So for us, what we found out was for the current algorithms, 5-year plan, blah, 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 all those long forms, women don't have the time most times because most entrepreneurship are geared towards self-provision or just staying afloat. They actually don't have those records. So what we've done is that we've tried to remove them and just say, how do we vet women and just create our own algorithms that are sort of like social. So for example, I think over time we found that, so when a woman is, she runs a business, she posts once a week with some other parameters, she's likely not to default, those kind of things. I've also noticed if she's in this association and shows up in maybe this and this party, she's likely not to default except something very critical happens. We've also noticed that she starts having problems paying, you should ask her about her husband and blah, 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 blah. Then if she's about to break up, the marriage is about to break up, she's likely to default. So those sort of like social things that seem very trivial, but they actually help us to score them. That's what we've tried to do over time. So is she pregnant? If she's pregnant, what's happening in her business? Does she have strong hands? If she doesn't have strong hands, she's likely to default. If she's not, like those things that are very female-centric that we notice that we're missing from gender-neutral specific algorithms, we've just tried to identify them and say, hey, can we use that to actually gauge a women? And it's worked for us. And in cases when it didn't work, we learned. I mean, I know that when I started, one of the first key people that I wanted to focus on was stay-at-home moms, because I just felt like, some of them were stuck and, I heard the cries of many of them and I felt I wanted to do something. But I quickly got burnt, just by, doing some tests to say, hey, I now understand that because their income is not regular and because their case is peculiar, do I want to create and think about this peculiar case? And I'm like, no, not at this time, and stuff. So for us, it's been learning to say what are the other algorithms that are missing that currently gender neutral systems don't capture, and just look at them and say, can we utilize them to actually give her? And when we give for some of them, when we give them, and for us also, we wanted to, I personally didn't want to give women 20,000 naira, things that maybe the bank or the fast cash give them. I wanted to give them something more, things that can help them change their life. And we have a few lift moments for women that this has significantly helped to sort of like revolutionize their business and their life and their family. Thank you.
Perfect. Sari, I'd like to hear from you as well on this, and then move on with questions.
Absolutely. So I think I agree with with my fellow panelists here. When we're thinking of designing some of these funnels, establishing intent is very important, but also making sure the journey is actually very, very simple, and using digital flows that make it easier. I guess the other thing that we've been able to leverage a lot is what they call the India stack now. So the digital identities online, the common digital payment code, which is called UPI in India, is now, it's a pretty easy integration. There's a new framework in town, it's called Account Aggregator, So a lot of these things are literally, from a design perspective, they're literally click, 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 no typing or keyboard required. Some of these things are voice enabled now, which is, I think, taking this to the next level. It allows a user to use their own native language without having to worry what is written in the form. So we're leveraging some of these very interesting innovations in building the journey. But the other thing we also realize is it's important for us to pass on feedback into the community. So for example, every afternoon we host something called a loan open house, which is literally to say, hey, you have a question about the product, or you didn't get a loan, or you're not sure how to apply, just show up and, it literally be like this session and you could talk to us. So creating a sense of openness and community, but also designing product journeys that are as simple as, let's say, WhatsApp, are two very critical approaches in making sure that our funnel is not just, it's just not a pyramid, but it's a little more of an ecosystem. So, hey, I didn't qualify for a loan today, but I'm going to learn something from my peers, or I'm going to look at some content, or I will see how to run my business better, and I'll come back and apply in a month's time. And I stay in the ecosystem. So the message to our users is always, hey, this is not a one-time thing. This is not a win or lose. And this is a space for you where there are elements that might be relevant in your business growth. So it could be learning, it could be product, it could be, of course, capital. That's the main thing you are here for. But also to say, hey, you're not alone. There are other women who are like you. There are similar business owners. There are peers, and there are, of course, mentors. And that's really like the approach we take. And of course, a lot of this is replicating some of the offline experiences that I think women are familiar with.
Nice. Ifeoma, I want to come back to you and talk about how we can improve the conversion rate at the usage stage of the funnel, right? So what has worked with you at Secluded to convert the women that you're having these discussions with to actually make them get the product?
So I think first of all is what has worked with us in converting the type of women that we want, because over time we found, especially for credit, I mean, we've not started doing savings. Savings, anybody can do it. And credit, we want a specific type of woman because we want our money back so that we can give other women. What has worked for us is I think first, like I said, choosing a specific kind of woman that we want to deal with in terms of giving money. And what has also worked for us in terms of conversion is referrals, making those type of women that has passed the tick box get other women. We noticed that is faster, less approval, cheaper. And what has worked for us in terms of conversion is thinking about activities that those type of women like, and designing those type of women and just telling them to show up. And most of them happen to be non-financial activities. What else has worked for us? What also has worked for us is just continue to being aspirational. I mean, some of them saw me evolve from being this local girl to this local to, the next local girl to this person. So, and also passing them those opportunities to say, hi, you can also be this person. I mean, success is not for the elite. You too can also build yourself. I think that is something that we've seen that has worked for us in terms of converting the leads that we want. And also, I mean, in combination with some of the other things that she said, sorry, I'm always taking notes because I'm also learning, is that, putting some other ads on, like learning, I mean, we're thinking of building our own learning in a way that we feel that it's unique and quirky to our space and that will be of value to our customers and stuff. So yes.
Good. Amazing. Thank you so much. So we will be opening up for Q&A. So to my audience, please feel free to put your questions in the chat box and I'll make sure that we address them all. Turning to you all. So maybe Halima, with you first. studies have shown that fintechs have less than 20 seconds to convince users to stay on their site. And I think by the time the research was done, and today that is even less today. And nearly 40% of the users actually drop off even prior to signing up because the registration obviously is too boring and too long and time consuming. So what are some of the most successful approaches you took at Oran to make sure that you convert women visitors to actually then sign up?
In our case, because there is slightly low digital literacy as well, and the smartphones that are available might not be something that would have high storage space. So our entry point is not necessarily having a bank, downloading an app. It could be a web app, it could be a form that's available to capture that interest. And it's not asking for too much information. So from the marketing or the community to directly to a form of capturing that interest. Once that interest is captured, we've had all the conversations or whatever is required done. Then the last step is actually to download the app. Which is more from a transaction perspective, from a payments perspective, from feeling that you're part of that, of some kind of a product perspective. But top of the funnel, we have made sure that it's as light as possible and also available in different kinds of languages for her to understand, and different kinds and it's palatable, it's visually appealing for the female audience as well, which captures her attention, makes her curious enough to then continue on the journey for us.
Amazing. So maybe Sairi, turning to you. So we know that satisfied women customers are far more loyal than men. So what can fintechs do, maybe in clear bullets, to become the platform, the app, the service provider of choice for women?
Women are actually the most profitable customers, I can tell you that. Like, you can literally build and we know there are a lot of fintechs out there who are struggling to show any signs of profitability. And I do think women are by far the most profitable customer. One, their lifetime value is way higher. There's a lot more retention value of this user. And this is, I think, demonstrated in data. It's not just an opinion. Very, very simple, actually, in terms of designing products or treating this customer. I think I would say remove any form of scary, how do I say this? Take away the tech vibe from your platforms. I think too many fintechs are they are designed to look very geeky and nerdy, and the idea is to sort of say, hey, let's make this all very complex. The simpler your product is, the better it is. And second, I guess, build your own communities, just in terms of, and some of the best products on the internet are actually communities, and communities have high brand recall, they have high trust value, and they, of course, are better sales funnels in terms of designing this. And third is, I think, just the level of support you would provide to your user. A lot of internet products, fintechs, are notorious for not having adequate amount of support. And I guess that's really one of the key elements in creating more trust. So I should be able to speak to a human being and solve my problem if I ever have a problem, that is. And once you've done that, I think you can keep this user for life. And again, nothing new. I mean, a lot of companies are built on this, and we've experienced some of those experiences, whether it's banks or credit cards or even commerce products.
Perfect. Well, actually, there's a question in the chat which I'm going to integrate from now. So Diego is asking, what are those industries where you have found more concentration of women entrepreneur, and what are the most common financing needs? So actually, the question is to all three of you. Sairi, why don't you go first, and then we'll move around.
So our top entrepreneurs actually come from 3 industries today, and they're also a little bit of a representation of, you can say, digital meets physical industries. So fashion boutiques that went online to sell are probably one of the fastest growing categories. Beauty businesses that are now leveraging the internet and Instagram to create a lot more customer footprint, and food businesses, thanks to the whole delivery ecosystem, are by far the largest sort of beneficiaries. The other sort of businesses that we end up working with are, preschools, beauty parlor chains, yoga studios, a lot of real world businesses with real revenue. And the financing needs are invariably capital needs to say, hey, I need machines, or I need equipment, I need a bigger oven, I need an industrial oven. Revenue-based financing, hey, I have receivables, but they will come in due course. So can I get a line against that? And of course, one of what you call growth expense in terms of just expanding to another market. So most of these are again productive loans, mostly for asset financing or revenue-based financing.
Okay, and Harima, does that match with what you see in Pakistan?
I would echo that.
Yeah, and Ifeoma, is it the same in Nigeria? Same industries, more or less?
More or less, like trading, it's kind of very high. I mean, and fashion is on the top of that list. So fashion, when it comes to clothing, shoes, stuff. But in fashion, I think we noticed two categories: those that have a physical store and those that are on Instagram, and they kind of like have different patterns and behavior after a while. We also noticed food. Food is, whether it's agriculture. So there's food in terms of end product, and there's agricultural processing. So we have that, and we have manufacturing, basically.
Perfect. And since we're on this topic, I mean, there's a question from Karine, and she's asking, do women who take out a loan, do they come back to increase their loans? What's the behavior, more or less?
We actually built a product around these lines. It's called a top-up loan, which means you have an existing loan, you've been a good user. Hey, you can come back and take a percentage, 1/3 of your loan all over again without having to reapply and go through the process. And we're also seeing almost 20 to 25% users who take a loan and are at the end of finishing that loan will come back and apply for another loan pretty much within the same quarter. So because most of these entrepreneurs are also small entrepreneurs who don't have either the government backing, or let's say they're not venture investable businesses. They are good businesses, they're P&L businesses. So they want to make sure that they have access to finance.
Yeah.
I'm going to add a very interesting fact from our cohorts. 70% of our cohorts come back and apply for more and bigger loans. And the payment behavior is phenomenal for them to constantly get more and more loans and to do that upward mobility for themselves.
Amazing. We have a question from Michelle, and she's asking, what are your experiences in female client businesses having an appetite and also being successful in scaling? So Ifeoma, why don't I ask that to you? So do you see a correlation between, the appetite they have in taking loans and then the success they have within their own?
Yes, I see a correlation because for us, I noticed that once the ticket of the loan is bigger, it means that she's doing bigger things. But for me, I think one thing I've noticed is that women that are supposed to be getting investment are getting double-digit loans. Women that are supposed to be getting double-digit loans are getting single-digit loans. So, I mean, and that's why I'm happy that more women are stepping up to say, hey, this can change as soon as women start having wealth. They start wealth transfer and stuff. So yes, there is a correlation with that.
Perfect. And Sari, do you see the same?
Absolutely. We see, I think India is seeing this mega renaissance around women's entrepreneurship. And I don't know if you guys have heard about Shark Tank India. It's kind of like a little cultural phenomena going on here. what that has done is what used to be sitting room, living room conversation has now gone on national television, and everyone's talking about it, and families are talking about it. And a lot of folks who are raising capital on Shark Tank India are women who have been building, in the trenches. So they never went to the big VCs to raise, because typically that wouldn't happen. So a lot of women building D2C brands, a lot of women building. So what that has done is it suddenly unleashed this massive appetite to say, oh, wow, I could do this. So in fact, one of the things Mahila Money is doing now is we're increasing our loan ticket sizes. We are actually now building like a whole stack of vehicles which are very industry centric. So D2C, services businesses, beauty businesses, fashion businesses, and we are creating cohorts of capital that's very, very industry centric, so that, and the numbers are actually quite astounding just in terms of, the amount of capital that can be deployed to bring scale to, a lot of these businesses. They also have an employment effect, which means most people start off as solopreneurs and then end up employing, let's say, 2 to 5 people, and then 10 to 20 people, and go so on. So there is a little bit of a network effect on employment, and that's what sort of is, I guess, a little bit of the silver lining of women not being in formal workforce in India right now.
Yeah, completely understand. Ifeoma, so Tessa's asking a question on you to elaborate on the last statement you made. So why do you think women aren't getting loans to match their wealth and income?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
Why do you think women aren't getting loans to match their wealth and their income?
Very quickly, I mean, I've been in corporate for a long time before I started Chic Loaded, and starting Chic Loaded and quickly working in the female economy, I realized that there are two worldviews. The women economy, female entrepreneurship, have a world that is different from the corporate. And all the decisions, all the propositions, and the big checks are written in the corporates. So there needs to be like a lot of learning and relearning from both parties. And one thing I noticed is that there's always a subconscious bias in the way that everybody interact. One, for the women, I mean, they come in sitting down, and as soon as they sit down, they feel they don't fit in. And then when you give them the list of things to do, they just feel like, gosh, I said it, I would never get this. I mean, not to be biased. I mean, there was sometime last year, I decided to say, hey, I want to take a loan from the bank just to see how it is. And they sent me the form, and it was like, get a guarantor, get this ID card, get this. I really wanted to do it because it was very low income loans. I just never did it until it was gone, because I kept thinking about like the form, the size of the form for me it was too long. I mean, I have 4 kids, I have a business, I have a team. Then I'm supposed to fill this long form. So there's that bias for women where they feel like, will they get it? Do I understand the process? Then for the banks, I mean, in communicating with them, they're like, oh, this woman sounds like she doesn't know what she's doing. And most women tend to sound that way. And, it's a behavioral communicate. I think it's in communicating, their value in a way that, that doesn't fit that world. And yeah, that's it. So everybody is to blame for it, but there's a lot of improvement and there's a lot of learning for everybody to do more.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So we have a question around regulation, and sorry, I know you touched upon this. So do you have trouble creating seamless integration for women because of regulation?
Actually, yeah, because one, we're not regulated. We're a consumer platform. We work with banking and NBFC partners, which means that while we are not directly regulated, we're always working with regulated entities. And irrespective of where we are in the world, regulation does slow things down. Yes, it does create a lot of de-risking in the ecosystem. It exists for a purpose, but it's not very consumer friendly. So we're constantly bringing consumer solutions to this, it's an ongoing battle. Basically, between business teams and legal teams, there's always a little tussle going on. But and of course, given where the world is, the Indian regulator is very consumer first right now. So making sure consumers are protected at all costs is their first priority, and rightly so. And I think as a company, so one of the things we internally do is we do a quarterly regulation audit. So we basically take all the regulation that applies to us and we map ourselves almost every 3 months to say, hey, are we doing all right? Like, we're building great systems, we're building great tech, but can we make sure we're not breaking any rules here? We're not doing anything that may go out of the line. And I think that's a cultural muscle all fintechs need to build, especially the ones working with new to credit customers and new markets.
Perfect. There's a question from Lakshman asking, does market system impact on repaying capacity of loan taken by women? Halima, have you seen any challenges there?
Every time we've seen any kind of economic crunch that has happened, so I'll give you example from COVID and right now the current inflation and macroeconomic conditions in Pakistan, we've seen that women will come forward. They'll be a lot more transparent with their financial.
Halima, we lost you. I think your connection got cut.
Will come out. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, now
Sorry.
we hear you. You just got cut for a second.
So we've seen that women, while as macroeconomic changes happen and or economic crunches or crises happen, women are the first ones who will come forward and communicate their financial situation. So if they are in a position where they would have slightly more liquidity, they would pay off their loans faster. Or if they do not have that liquidity, they will be honest about it and try to restructure their loans as well. So they're in our experience, they've been more responsible. There's no entitlement to that money that they feel, which on our other side of the spectrum, we've noticed that there would be an sense of entitlement that, hey, I am in crunch, there's nothing I can do about it. While women, that approach would be, hey, I'm in crunch, I want you to help me. So there's a little bit more vulnerability, and that goes back to the kind of, once she trusts the platform, she also knows that if she goes into a default factor or anything, there's no other options that are available to her, or no other options that she would be comfortable trusting. So it's a both, it's a relationship between the customer and the platform itself that helps her navigate economic conditions as well.
Okay, so I'm conscious of time. We just have a few minutes. I want to ask Lisa's question very quickly, although I would love to answer it myself, but I don't want to. Do you think the evidence you have so far serving women is enough to prove the business case for serving women intentionally? If not, what is missing? Ifeoma, you have your hands up.
So, I mean, I studied maths, and let's prove by contradiction. Let's assume that I don't have enough information to say that there's a business case. 50% of the world are women. And when you look at it and you look at the data for funding, whether it's debt financing or whether it's equity financing, women account for, like, let's say, for equity financing, it's like 5%, for debt financing, I mean, let's put it at 12%. But over the last 2 decades, the number of women that have graduated in schools, both top schools around the US and in Africa, has more than doubled. It means that in the era where banking systems were created, women were not educated, they were not key players. But now they've upskilled. When you look at the income that women have generated in the last 2 decades too, you see that, I mean, it's in trillions of dollars. If these people are not getting money and you are in charge and you're seeing that there's a 50-50 mix, it shows that there's sufficient data to show that we have to look at and find out what's wrong. There's something wrong. There's something broken. And we have to fix it, not because they need help or because they want to be treated specially, but because everybody is needed to do their own part to make everybody live comfortably and to make the world a better place.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, I just want to do a quick roundup of the learnings I got today from you amazing three ladies. One, do your research to understand your target market. Use different components such as phygital, where you combine physical and digital to build the trust needed. Tune your communications to focus on problem solving and based on the benefits of what you are providing. Build a sense of community, be honest and transparent, make sure your user experience and user interface, and when you design the journey to be seamless, but also showing that the help is around and at hand and human help, not just AI help. Make your processes quick, use a lot of video, change your algorithms, consider features that are not covered in gender neutral approaches, make things visually appealing, don't make it geeky and don't make it complex, and keep things simple. So I hope I learned what you guys were teaching. Thank you to my fantastic panelists, and thank you all for really taking the time on a Friday evening to be with us. We hope you found the session insightful. Wishing you all a great weekend and a good rest of the day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.